How Vikings survived Arctic winters without fireplaces, untold history for sleep. Hello guys, today we will know about the long nights of the North. The quiet resilience of the people who lived in the shadow of the frost, and how they found warmth in a world of ice. This narration is here to help you relax, to let the weight of the day drift away into the cold, still air of the past. There is a quiet mystery in the way they lived, a slow, steady rhythm that beat beneath the frozen ground. Listen closely, but let your eyes grow heavy as we travel back to a small settlement on the edge of a deep, dark fjord. It is the 10th century, and the sun has not been seen for many weeks. The air outside is a sharp, biting cold. It settles in the lungs like a heavy mist. The village is silent, buried under a thick blanket of snow that muffles every sound. The only movement is the slow, rhythmic falling of white flakes, drifting down from a sky that is neither black nor blue, but a deep, endless gray. The world is waiting, and in that waiting, there is peace, the long house and the hearth. The homes of these people were not like ours. They were long, low structures built of stone, turf, and heavy timber. They looked like upturned ships resting on the land. Inside, there were no fireplaces built into the walls, no chimneys to carry the smoke away. Instead, there was the hearth, a long pit of stones in the very center of the earthen floor. The fire lived there, a slow, glowing heart of orange and gold. The smoke rose up to the rafters, swirling around the dried meats and herbs hanging from the beams. It escaped slowly through a small hole in the thick, thatched roof. The air was thick with the scent of burning peat and dried wood. It was a warm, heavy atmosphere, a cocoon against the howling wind outside. The walls were lined with raised wooden platforms. These were the places where the family sat, worked, and slept. They were covered in thick furs, bear skins, reindeer hides, and heavy wool blankets. The textures were rough but insulating. Everyone lived together in this one long room. The sounds of breathing, the crackle of the fire, the rustle of straw. It was a shared warmth, a collective survival, the morning rituals. Morning does not bring light in the deep winter. It only brings a slight thinning of the shadows. The people wake slowly, reluctant to leave the warmth of the furs. The fire has burned down to embers overnight. The first task of the day is to breathe life back into the coals. A woman moves quietly, her feet treading softly on the packed earth. She adds small twigs, then larger pieces of wood, until the glow returns. The children stir next. They are dressed in tunics of heavy, coarse wool. Their clothes are simple, undyed, and functional. There are no buttons, only toggles made of bone or antler. They help their mother with the morning meal. It is a simple affair. A bowl of thick barley porridge, sweetened with a little dried fruit or a drop of precious honey. The porridge is warm. It heats the body from the inside out. They eat in silence, listening to the wind rattle the heavy wooden door. There is no rush. In the winter, time moves differently. It stretches out like the shadows on the snow. There is a deep patience in every movement, a slow, deliberate way of being. Work in the dim light. Outside, the men must check on the livestock. The sheep and goats are kept in a separate section of the longhouse or in a small, attached stable. Their body heat helps keep the dwelling warm. The smell of the animals is a constant presence. It is a scent of life and survival. The men carry small oil lamps, shallow stone bowls filled with seal oil or rendered fat. A piece of moss serves as a wick. The light is small and flickering. It casts long, dancing shadows against the stone walls. The men move through the stable, checking the hay supplies. The animals must be fed sparingly. The winter is long, and the stores must last until the first grass of spring. There is a quiet bond between the people and their beasts. They are all waiting for the sun together. The work is repetitive and slow, cleaning the stalls, checking the thatch for leaks, repairing tools by the light of the hearth. There is no sound of machinery, only the scrape of a wooden shovel, the low bleat of a sheep, and the steady, rhythmic thud of an axe splitting wood in the sheltered entryway. The art of wool and weaving. Inside the main hall, the women begin their daily labor. The sound of the loom is the heartbeat of the home. It is a vertical loom, weighted with heavy stones at the bottom. The warp threads hang straight, and the weaver moves the shuttle back and forth with practiced ease. Click, clack, click, clack. It is a hypnotic sound, a lullaby of industry. They spin while using drop spindles, small wooden shafts with a stone or clay whirl at the end. They can spin while they walk, while they talk, while they sit by the fire. The wool is greasy with lanolin, which makes it water-resistant. It is the shield against the damp Arctic air. Every garment is made by hand. Every stitch is a testament to endurance. The children help sort the wool. They pick out bits of straw and dirt. Their small hands move rhythmically. They learn the stories of their ancestors as they work. The elders speak in low, monotonous tones, telling of great voyages and ancient spirits. The stories are not for excitement. They are for memory. They are the threads that hold the community together, the midday meal and the village path. As the dim midday passes, the main meal is prepared. It is often a stew, a rich broth made of salted fish or preserved meat. They add dried leeks, onions, and roots that were gathered in the autumn. The pot hangs over the hearth on a heavy iron chain. The steam rises, mingling with the smoke. The smell is savory and deep. They eat with wooden spoons from bowls carved from birch wood. Bread is a rare treat in the deep winter. If there is any, it is a hard, flat cake made of rye or barley. It is dipped into the stew to soften it. There is a sense of gratitude for every bite. The food is the fuel that keeps the cold at bay. It is the essence of the summer sun, preserved in salt and smoke. Sometimes a neighbor will visit. They travel along narrow, trodden paths through the snow. They carry staves to find their way in the gloom. The visit is quiet, a sharing of news, a trade of a few eggs for a bundle of dried herbs. They sit by the hearth for a while, their wool cloaks steaming as they dry. Then they disappear back into the gray world outside, the craft of the blacksmith. In a small hut nearby, the blacksmith works. His forge is a place of intense heat in a world of ice. The bellows creak, a steady, rhythmic puff of air that makes the coals roar. He is shaping iron into nails, knives, and spearheads. The ring of the hammer on the anvil is a clear, lonely sound that carries far across the frozen fjord. He works by the glow of the metal. His face is etched with the lines of many winters. He does not speak much. His movements are efficient and sure. He understands the nature of the iron, how it softens and how it hardens. His work is essential. Without the smith, the village would lose its edge, its ability to hunt, to build, and to defend. The children sometimes watch from the doorway, their eyes wide as the sparks fly. The heat of the forge is a wonder to them, but even here, there is no rush. The smith works at the pace of the seasons, slow, steady, and unyielding. The iron will take as long as it takes. The winter will last as long as it must. The shore and the frozen sea. Down by the shore, the great longships are hauled up onto the land. They are covered with layers of brush and snow to protect their wooden hulls. They look like sleeping giants, waiting for the ice to break. The sea is a dark, churning mass beyond the edge of the ice. The waves crash against the shore with a heavy, rhythmic boom. A few men might venture out to the edge of the ice to fish. They use bone hooks and lines made of braided horsehair. They sit in the freezing wind for hours, their faces wrapped in furs. They are looking for cod or halibut, any fresh protein to supplement the winter stores. The silence on the ice is absolute, broken only by the occasional crack of the shifting floes. They return as the shadows deepen even further. Their catch is small but precious. They walk with heavy steps back to the warmth of the longhouse. The transition from the biting air to the smoky warmth is a physical relief, a return to the world of the living. The cold is a powerful force, but the hearth is stronger. The evening shadows. As the day fades into the true night, the activities in the longhouse slow down. The oil lamps are lit once more. They cast a soft, amber glow that barely reaches the corners of the room. The darkness is not feared. It is a companion. It is the time for resting the body and the mind. The elders take their places near the fire. They are the keepers of the law and the lore. They speak of the stars, how the great bear wanders the sky, how the lights of the north, the aurora, are the spirits of the fallen. The children listen until their heads begin to nod. The repetition of the stories is like the lapping of waves, steady and predictable. The women put away their spindles. The weaving is finished for the night. They check the stores of food one last time. They ensure the door is barred against the wind. The heavy wooden bolt slides into place with a satisfying thud. The world outside is locked away, and the world inside is safe and warm. The art of the woodcarver. By the light of a single lamp, a man might spend his evening carving. He uses a small, sharp knife to trace intricate patterns into a piece of oak. Dragons, vines, interlaced knots. His hands move slowly, following the grain of the wood. It is a quiet, meditative task, a way to bring beauty into the harshness of winter. The wood shavings fall silently onto the earthen floor. They will be swept into the fire later. Nothing is wasted. The patterns he creates tell the story of his people, of their connection to the natural world, of the balance between the wild and the tamed. He works until his fingers grow stiff. Then he sets the knife aside. The carving will take many nights to complete, perhaps the whole winter. There is no deadline. There is only the process, the slow transformation of a rough block into a work of art. It is a reflection of the Viking life, hard on the outside, but full of intricate detail and hidden warmth. The sleep of the North. One by one, the family members climb onto the raised platforms. They settle into the straw and the furs. The layers are heavy and comforting. They sleep close together, the warmth of one body flowing to the next. The sound of the wind outside is a distant memory, a reminder of the world they have conquered for another night. The fire is banked. The coals are covered with a thin layer of ash to keep them glowing until morning. The smoke thins. The room grows darker. The only light is the faint, pulsing red of the dying hearth. It is the heartbeat of the house. Slow and steady, the breathing of the family becomes synchronized. A soft, rhythmic chorus. The animals in the stable are quiet. The woodcarver has put away his knife. The weaver has left her loom. The village is a collection of silent mounds under the stars, and the stars look down with cold, unblinking eyes. The silence of the snow. Outside, the snow continues to fall. It fills the tracks of the men who went to the shore. It covers the woodpile. It builds up against the walls of the longhouse, adding another layer of insulation. The earth is being tucked in for a long sleep, and the people sleep with it. There are no clocks to tick away the seconds, no alarms to wake the weary. There is only the natural rhythm of the body, the need for rest, the need for warmth. The dream of the coming spring is a quiet hum in the back of the mind. But for now, the winter is enough. It is a time of preservation, of waiting, of being. The fjord is a mirror of the sky, dark and deep. The mountains are white giants guarding the entrance to the world. Everything is in its place. Everything is as it should be. The silence is not empty. It is full of the history of those who came before, and the promise of those who will come after, the rhythm of the seasons. The winter is not a hardship to be endured. It is a season to be lived. The Vikings do not fight the cold. They wrap themselves in it. They understand that the frost is necessary for the soil, that the ice is a bridge, that the darkness is a time for the spirit to grow. They have lived this way for generations. The knowledge of how to survive is passed down through the touch of a hand, the sound of a voice, the taste of the stew. It is a physical memory, a deep ancestral understanding of the land and the sea. They are part of the Arctic, as much as the reindeer and the seals. As the night stretches on, the world feels smaller. It is reduced to the space around the hearth, the circle of the family, the warmth of the furs. The rest of the world is a vast, cold mystery. But here, inside the turf walls, there is certainty. There is life. There is peace. The fading embers. The red glow of the hearth grows dimmer. The shadows reach further across the floor. The smell of the peat fire lingers, a comforting scent that speaks of home and safety. The heart rate slows. The mind lets go of the last remnants of thought. The sound of the wind has faded to a whisper, a gentle sigh against the thatch. The world is held in a state of grace, a moment of perfect stillness. The past and the future are gone. There is only the present, the soft weight of the blankets, the warmth of the person beside you, the slow, rhythmic breath of the night. Rest now, like the Vikings in their longhouses. Let the cold stay outside. Let the warmth fill your spirit. The winter is long, but you are safe. You are warm. You are home. The stars will watch over you. The earth will hold you. And the morning will come when it is ready. But for now, there is only the quiet, the darkness, and the sleep. The journey through the snow is over. The paths are covered. The fire is resting, and you may rest too, slowly, gently, into the deep, frozen peace of the north, in the quiet of the longhouse, while the frost thickens on the stones. We can look closer at the small things they held in their hands, the tools that were as much a part of them as their own skin, the bone and the antler. When the metal was scarce, the people turned to the animals they respected. They used the antlers of the reindeer and the bones of the whale. These materials were strong. They were resilient, and they felt warm to the touch, unlike the biting cold of iron. The women used bone needles, smoothed by years of passing through heavy wool. They were polished until they shone like ivory. The needles moved in a rhythmic dance, in and out, in and out, stitching the thick cloaks that would keep a child from the freezing wind. They also carved combs from antler, delicate things with fine teeth. It was a sign of care and cleanliness. Even in the deepest winter, they would sit by the hearth, slowly drawing the comb through their hair. The repetitive motion was a way to calm the mind, a small act of order in a wild, untamed world. The stone and the clay. On the earthen floor, near the warmth of the embers, sat the heavy soapstone pots. This stone was special. It could hold the heat of the fire long after the flames had died down. It radiated a gentle, steady warmth into the stew, and into the hands of those who held the bowls. The children learned to shape clay into small weights for the loom. They would press their thumbs into the wet earth, feeling the texture of the ground beneath them. These weights kept the threads taut. They were the anchors of the fabric, just as the hearth was the anchor of the family. Every object had a purpose. There was no clutter, only the tools of survival. The spindle whorl, the whetstone for sharpening the knife, the heavy iron shears for the spring shearing. They were kept in their places, rubbed clean with oil, ready for the moment they were needed. The stories of the high ones. As the family lay beneath the firs, the elders would whisper the old stories. They did not speak of heroes in a loud voice, but of the gods who also felt the cold. They spoke of Odin, the All-Father, who wandered the world in a gray cloak, his wide-brimmed hat pulled low against the snow. They told of Thor, whose hammer was the sound of the ice cracking on the mountains. They believed the thunder was his chariot, but in winter he was quieter, guarding the borders of the world against the frost giants who lived in the dark spaces between the stars. These stories were like the smoke from the hearth. They filled the room. They drifted into the dreams of the children, making the world feel less lonely. The gods were not distant. They were neighbors who understood the struggle for warmth. They were the guardians of the fire, the song of the skald. Sometimes, a traveler known as a skald would stay for a few nights. He brought no goods to trade, only words. His voice was a low, steady drone, like the sound of the sea. He would recite long poems of ancestors who sailed to the edge of the world. The poems had a rhythm, a steady beat that matched the pulse of the blood. The listeners would close their eyes, seeing the white foam of the waves, the green hills of distant lands, and the bright sun that they had almost forgotten. The skald's voice would eventually drop to a whisper, the verses becoming shorter, until the only sound left was the crackle of a single log. The stories were over, the history was safe, and the people could drift into a sleep filled with the ghosts of kings and the salt of the sea. The final glow. The night is at its deepest now. The tools are still. The stories are silent. The only movement is the slow rise and fall of chests beneath the reindeer hides. The longhouse is a fortress of peace, a small bubble of life in a vast, frozen universe. The embers are a deep, dark red, like the heart of the earth. They hold the promise of tomorrow's fire. They hold the memory of the sun. You can let your breath slow to match theirs. The steady, calm rhythm of a people who knew how to wait. The snow falls, the world sleeps, and you are safe within the walls in the deep stillness of the longhouse, where the shadows have lived for many months. There comes a subtle change, a quiet shift in the air that only those who live by the seasons can truly feel. The thinning of the dark. The transition begins not with light, but with a change in the sound of the wind. The sharp, whistling shriek of the Arctic gale begins to soften. It becomes a low, steady hum, a sighing across the roof thatch. The frost on the heavy wooden door no longer grows thicker each night. Instead, it begins to turn translucent. Inside, the family stirs at the usual time, but there is a new quality to the silence. The children wake and look toward the smoke hole in the roof. For the first time in many weeks, the patch of sky is not a deep, impenetrable black. It is a bruised, dusty violet, the color of a dream waking up. The grandmother, sitting by the hearth, stops her spinning for a moment. She tilts her head, listening to the eaves. She hears the first, heavy thud of snow sliding off the roof. It is a slow, wet sound, a sign that the iron grip of the frost is beginning to loosen its hold. The first pale glimmer. Then, it happens. The men open the heavy door to check the livestock, and instead of the usual wall of darkness, a sliver of pale, watery light touches the earthen floor. It is not the bright gold of summer. It is a fragile, silver-gray light, a ghost of the sun. The world outside is still white, but the snow is no longer flat and dead. It sparkles with a billion tiny crystals, reflecting the light that is creeping over the jagged peaks of the fjord. The air is still cold, bitingly cold, but it carries the scent of damp stone and distant salt spray. The sea is waking up. The people step out into the light, blinking their eyes. Their skin is pale from the long months of shadow. They stand in silence, watching the horizon. They do not cheer. They simply breathe, a long, collective exhale that has been held since the first frost of autumn, the awakening of the village. The rhythm of the village begins to quicken, though only slightly. There is the sound of wooden shovels clearing the paths to the neighbors' homes, not out of necessity this time, but out of a desire to see faces in the light. The smoke from the various longhouses rises straight into the air, pillars of gray against the brightening sky. The blacksmith leaves his forge to stand in the sun. He holds his weathered hands out to the pale rays. The metal of his tools seems to catch the light, reflecting the promise of new work. The woodcarver brings his unfinished chair out to the entryway, looking at his intricate knots in the true light, seeing where the grain needs one last touch of the knife. The children are the first to run, their feet crunching through the crust of the snow. They look for the tips of the willow trees, searching for the first pussy willow buds. The silver firs that signal the sap is beginning to rise. They are like the buds themselves, small lives ready to bloom after the long, cold sleep, the preparation for the sea. Down at the shore, the transition is most visible. The ice that choked the fjord is beginning to crack. Long, deep booming sounds echo through the valley, like the beating of a great drum. The men gather around the sleeping longships. They begin to clear away the protective brush. They check the hulls for cracks. They run their hands over the tarred planks. The smell of pine pitch and old rope fills the air. It is the smell of the journey, the smell of the spring. They work slowly, methodically, preparing the vessels that will soon carry them across the gray waters. The women begin to bring the heavy wool blankets outside. They hang them over wooden rails to let the cold, fresh air blow through the fibers. The scent of wood smoke begins to lift from the fabric, replaced by the crisp, clean smell of the melting snow. It is a cleansing, a shedding of the winter's skin, the promise of the soil. In the small patches of earth near the walls, where the snow melts first, the ground is black and sodden, but beneath the mud, the life is waiting. The people look at the land not as a frozen waste, but as a mother about to wake. They prepare the simple wooden plows, checking the blades. They talk of barley and rye, of the timing of the seeds. There is a deep, quiet excitement, a steady pulse of hope. The winter was a time of internal stories, but the spring is a time of outward action. The sun stays a little longer each day. A few more minutes of silver light, a few more breaths of softening air. The transition is not a leap. It is a slow, graceful walk from the shadows into the light, and the people walk with it, step by step, heartbeat by heartbeat, returning to rest. As the first long day ends, and the twilight lingers in a beautiful endless blue, the family returns to the longhouse. The fire is still there, but it feels different now. It is no longer the only source of life. It is a companion to the sun. The sleep that night is different. It is lighter, filled with the sounds of the melting world. The drip, drip, drip of water from the eaves. The distant groan of the ice. The soft stirrings of the animals who sense the coming grass. You can feel that transition too, the shift from the deep, heavy sleep of winter to the light, refreshing rest of the spring. Let the warmth of the hearth stay with you. but let the freshness of the new air clear your mind. The cycle continues. The sun returns, and you are part of the rhythm of the earth. Rest now, in the light of the waking north. The morning is coming, and it is beautiful,